Great. Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see you here and for you to have joined us this afternoon to be able to have a fabulous interview with my friend Colleen around her book called The Strelitzia Way. So before I get on to that, my name is Linda Smith and I am the CEO of 50 Plus for those who may be coming from outside of our membership network. And we're a membership network who serve and learn and earn together. And for people in the second half of life, with longevity, there's lots of opportunities. And for many of us, we need to earn for longer. So we're really happy to have these kinds of conversations. And I'm really excited about having this one today with my friend Colleen. So Colleen and I met at a breakfast about 20 years ago. Was it a My Genius breakfast, Colleen? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And I think it was at Sportron head office, if I remember. It
Yes,
was
yeah, it
just
was.
sometimes you join a network and there is some connection that just survives. And in many of the people, just like my relationship with you, Louise, I remember very clearly that morning, that day, that moment, because it's like these kindred spirits. And those spirits still need to be built. And so in the early days, we met often for coffee. In fact, Colleen, you and I met for coffee a lot in those
A
early days.
lot, yes.
And often in Lone Hill. And the one thing I loved about Colleen is many times when he had a meeting, her mom would come with. And so that's who Colleen is. She's very much a family person. And I remember just getting to know your mom and having her there as part of that conversation. It really was very special. And my reflection on that at the Gender Mainstreaming Awards, that was, I think, at Northgate at the Dome, where you placed your mom right next to me at the table. And was that 2019? I don't know.
2019, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was a very special moment for me. That was my last moment with your mom. And yeah, she was always so proud of how you developed over all of the years. So we're going to be talking about your book, but your book is about your journey and about the interaction of others who have come along with you in the journey. And so it's called The Strelitzia Way. And so tell us a little about your early years from living in a caravan and working as a
Mhm.
teen and building grit and resilience.
Yeah. So, I think like anybody else, Linda, I think you look back on your life and where you come from. And I think at first, coming from, first of all, from Mayfair, I think people used to, when I said I came from Mayfair, it was like, you what? And, so at the age of 3, my dad decided that he wanted to move us into something better, but we didn't have enough money for Mondial where we were moving to. And so he moved us into a caravan for 18 months. And when I started going into the corporate world, and basically from a school perspective, I mean, I would just think I wouldn't tell anybody where I stayed because living in a caravan just wasn't the way that you got into the groups at school or that you really presented yourself as somebody that people wanted to associate with. So I really hid a lot of my background. But it was only when I started growing and realizing my purpose, and that took many, many years because I was brought up. You work hard, you get a matric, you study, you work until you perhaps are lucky enough to get to the corner office. And so I wasn't taught about purpose. I wasn't taught about how every lesson you learn gets you to where you need to be. All I knew was I had to work hard. And so I had a mom, as you say, my mom's been very integral to my journey. And whenever I thought I couldn't do something, she would say to me, come on, get yourself together. This is not the way I brought you up. Sort yourself out. Let's get going. And she really set the example for us because no matter what the challenges were, she always rose to that challenge. She never complained. And that was really where the grace came. And I really took example from her. So when we eventually left my dad, and I was 6 at the time, at the age of 13, we all had to work. My mom was a single mom, so my brother, my sister, and I had to work at the age of 13. But I had the example. And it was through all of these things that I realized that where you come from is not as important as the choices you make. So the choice was to learn from all of those things. I packed packets at Checkers at the age of 13, so it wasn't a flashy job or anything like that. But you did what you had to do. And so throughout that journey, I learned the value of hard work and really about setting the example, you know, and taking the lessons along the way. So that was a bit about my journey.
Right. And you speak often about your brother and Malcolm, as I know wherever you were, he was there supporting you and is still supporting you. So is there a sentence or two you want to say about that? And then we'll move on to a little bit more about the book.
Yeah, so I mean, Alan really, when I mean, through when I really understood my purpose and I decided to give up the financial services sector, Alan didn't understand. But, you know, I've come to realize that sometimes, because we always say the people that are closest to you will not necessarily understand your journey and your purpose. But I came to understand through that it wasn't that he didn't think I could do it. He was just really concerned for our well-being. Because, I mean, I talk about in my book where when I gave up the financial services sector to run Business Engage, it got to a point where we almost lost our home. And he was just concerned. But, you know, he did teach me the ability to take the opportunities and run with them. One of his quotes was, "Sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover." So he was really the anchor when we left my dad. He became a father figure and really a protector, you know, even though he didn't understand. So it was just concern. But Malcolm has been, you know, there are very few people on your journey that get to see every little bit of you. You know, when I show up in the work environment, it's everything's okay and it's all smooth sailing and, you know, but he's really seen that part of me that is sometimes when I just don't have the courage, or sometimes when I'm tired or whatever, but he's never, ever faltered on trust and my vision. So he's really become the rock. So even throughout my journey, although I talk about him as my rock, he's kind of woven throughout my story. And it's been so important to have that journey with somebody who not only gets where I'm going, but can bring the support that you need in terms of this journey and is prepared to take those risks with you.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing partnership between the two of you. So this is your third publication, The Strelitzia Way. So let's start up with the name. How did it find you?
Yeah, so I even say in the book, I wasn't really looking at publishing a third book. I've done the 2 books and I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to publish a third book. But everybody was saying to me, you've been on this journey for 20 years. There are lessons that you've learned. There's experiences. You've got to document some of this journey. And so I thought, well, what I will do is I will just put it down in a document. I'll give it to Jade. If anybody's interested, she'll have the documents and, you know, that's fine. That's all what I was looking to do. Park that thought. 20 years ago, I went to a workshop on the meaning of flowers and somehow the Strelitzia spoke to me. And I think it's all the meaning around the Strelitzia. And the fact that I wasn't certain about the journey, but I knew that there was something that I had to do. And so maybe it was the boldness, Maybe it was the fact that we didn't quite know how we were going to do it. So it's the soil that wasn't ready. I'm not sure, but it really hooked me in terms of the meaning of the Strelitzia. And I know we'll go into that just now. So that's where I left it 20 years ago. I didn't speak to anybody about it. I didn't document it in my documents. I hadn't had it on my computer. And so what happened was I've been playing around with AI. We've got a couple of projects that we're working on incorporating AI, and I was trying to work out how the image package worked. So I thought, I've got this document next to me. Let me pull it into ChatGPT. Let me ask it for a prompt that I can put into an image creator and see what it comes up with. And so that's what I did. And so I didn't mention anything about a flower. My prompt didn't mention anything about a flower. And that is the cover that came up, the Strelitzia Way.
Oh.
And it was a sign. You know, some people might think it was coincidence or it was a fluke. I mean, anybody that knows me knows I've got a deep faith that God walks with me every single part of the day. And for me, that was a sign from God that there was something in this that needed to be said and was a creation of impact that was going to take us forward. And that was why I decided to publish. So that's why it's called the Strelitzia Way. I hadn't come up with that thought. It was something that presented itself to me, and I took it as a sign.
Right. And what does it represent in the book per se?
Well, first of all, I mean, as I said, the resilience. Yeah. You know, the resilience is the fact that, you know, it's not an easy journey. I don't think life is an easy journey for anybody. I think anybody that says that it's an easy journey, there are things that you will learn along the way, and it's how you actually get up and go and trust that everything will be okay. I think for me, that is something very important is that uniqueness. Each one of us brings our own sense. And I think, especially in terms of entrepreneurship, we always say, I hear entrepreneurs saying, well, it's worked for her, so maybe I should go and do that. That's not the way. It should be you bring your own, your benefits, your character, what your God-given gifts is what the world needs, not somebody else's. But I think third of all is the rebirth. And I think the opportunity that, you know, if you look at the Strelitzia in the sheath, there are another 4 or 5 flowers that are still ready to be born. And so the thing is to understand that even though you get knocked down, and even though you go through challenges and everything, there's always opportunities to rise. You know, I always talk about legacy, and I always thought that legacy was something that you leave behind. And through my journey, I've realized with all of these elements, that essentially it's created every single day. So whatever you're going through is creating a legacy, as long as you're prepared to have people around you and do it collectively every single day.
Absolutely. And I love the way you talk about the unique journey for each of us. So in our next chapter, that's absolutely where we try and help people to discover the pathway in this next chapter of their lives. And I call it the gift season, where you get to unpack your unique gifts for your path with your gifts and your talents. And that's actually what you did. And as you say, there are more sheaths in that flower.
Yes,
and we can keep reinventing. But if we're reinventing later in life, it needs to be something we love. It's the time of our lives that we don't do it just for the money. We do it because it actually feels like play, and it feels like something we do because it's purposeful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier.
I also think, Linda, though, it's not reinvention or rebirth for the sake of it. You know, underpinning everything is your authenticity.
Yeah.
So if it's not who you are, it doesn't help for you to become somebody that you're not.
Yeah.
And so whatever that change is, it's got to feel right for you. It's got to sit with your values, and it's got to be you.
Absolutely, for sure.
Mm.
So you spoke about walking away from a great job in the financial sector. Um, what gave you the courage and why did you do it? I've done the same, so I want to hear what you've done.
I'm not so sure it's courage. I think when I mean, I was asked to represent Business Unity South Africa as one of the negotiators on the Women Empowerment and Gender Equality Bill. And this was after a 6-year journey of doing this as a hobby, business engage. And when I went to negotiate, it was supposed to remain a hobby. It was supposed to remain, I'm growing my financial services career, I'm getting to that corner office, and that's what I was taught. And so when I started negotiating, I realized that corporates weren't going to do gender because it's the right thing to do, or because women are so marginalized, or because it's our time. They were going to do it because what's in it for me, my bottom line, and I might come along for the journey. And it was then my financial services career or this. And by this stage, I developed a love for it. But I think quite naively, when I decided to give up my financial services career, I thought, because I ran a big budget at AIG, I thought, I'm going to leave tomorrow. I know what they need. All these corporates are going to flock to my feet, and we're going to revolutionize the world overnight. And so naively, I gave up my corporate job, but it was the best decision I took, as you know. So I then phoned Maria Ramos from APSA, because I knew Maria quite well. And I said, Maria, I've got this project. I need to come see you. And so she said, Cole, don't come see me. Go see Vanita Klein. And I'm gung ho off. I'm going to see Vanita Klein. She's gonna be our first member. And after an hour's worth of coffee with her, and I talk about it in my book, she said to me, so tell me, Cole, how different are you from women in mining, women in housing, women in construction, women in IT, all of these women's groups that come see me? And Linda sat with a mouthful of teeth, because I hadn't even thought that far. I hadn't thought why we were different. I hadn't thought while we were, while I was on this journey. All I knew was I was going to revolutionize the world overnight. And it took us on a 2-year journey where we were discovering what our purpose was. It got to a point where we got home one day, and on my front door was a piece of paper to say our house was going up for auction in a week's time. Just the following day, I got a call from AIG to say, Cole, come back for an interview. We've got this position in Africa, and we know you'll be good for the job. I walked in for the interview, and after 10 minutes, I thought, what on earth are you doing here? You can't go back. I got back I thanked them for the interview, got home, bearing in mind my brother and my whole family knew where we were in terms of our home, income, whatever the case may be. And as I walked in, my brother said to me, so Cole, did you take the job? And I said, no. He said, oh, Cole, just go and get a job. Do you know what the share price is of AIG? I said, I know all of that, but I know that I'm in the right place. And I sat on the edge of my bed. We had bought the worst home in Lone Hill to renovate. Malcolm's a quantity surveyor by profession. So we'd already started all of this renovating. In the book, you'll see the photographs of what we lived through for 2 years. And I looked outside with absolute peace. And I thought, well, maybe we're going to move into something that doesn't require so much work. It came to the day for the interview, for the auction. Within a half an hour, I got a call to say the auction had been stopped. I still don't know to this day. I don't know why. I can only think that, God had honored the decision I had taken because I was honoring this path. And so we're still in our home. We're now 115 corporate members strong. And, that was the real opportunity, I then phoned Maria. I said, Maria, I've been on this two-year journey. I want to come see you. She said, Cole, I told you 2 years ago, don't come see me. Go and see Venita. And this time I'm on my way to Venita and I'm thinking, I've been down this road before. I know it's not good. It's going to end dinner. Thank you for coming. And at the end of the coffee, she said to me, so tell me, Cole, how different are you from women in mining, women in housing, women in construction, women in IT? I said, Venita, you asked me that 2 years ago. I didn't have an answer, but I've got a concrete answer for you now. ABSA became our first member, and Venita then also said to us as I walked out, she said, and by the way, when you go and see somebody else, don't ask for so little. And so, yeah, as I said, we're now 115 corporate strong, 9 countries in Africa and growing strongly and on a journey.
Absolutely. And that took unbelievable faith and courage along the journey. And you spoke earlier about legacy and leadership. And you bring that up a lot in the book. And there's a statement in the book that you say leadership is not about perfection, but about presence and purpose. Explain that to us.
I think often we sit back and we don't start because we are trying to cross all the T's, dot all the I's, get ourselves perfect. But quite honestly, people aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for authenticity. They're looking for depth. They're looking for, they're also looking for hope. They're looking for people to say to them, I've done it, you can do it. They're looking for, that realness, the essence of lived experience. So essentially, you don't have to show up perfect. Nobody's perfect. And if you're waiting for perfection, you're going to be disappointed all the time. So the thing is to start where you are. I always say that when you start small, you don't have big budgets and that to hide behind. All you've got is what it takes. And it's amazing how you come up with solutions that you never thought possible because you got so little. And so where you start with the little things, it allows you to get that courage together for taking on bigger and better and all the rest of it. But you'll never become perfect. You can only go forward and remain authentic in who you are, what you want to achieve, what your purpose is. And often it takes you years to find your purpose, but when you do, you will realize you can never turn back on your purpose. It's something that finds you. I don't think I actually sat down one day and plotted my vision board and said, this is where I was going. I'm going to end up in a nonprofit. But essentially, life will take you on that journey. And as long as you're open, there will be times when you think, oh, what are people going to think? How could I have done that? No, it's a lesson you've got to learn. And life will present those challenges to you until you do learn the direction you're going.
Yeah. You spoke just now also about legacy as something we think we leave behind, but actually it's something we live on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Explain that from your perspective.
I always thought that, you do it on your own, you achieve and whatnot. And then at your funeral, people look back and say, oh, gee, she was so great, But essentially, legacy is not created on your own. And I mean, even in incorporating the 12 leaders that I have in the book, each one brings their uniqueness, each one brings their story, each one brings what you need to fulfill your legacy. And so essentially, it's what you're creating together with others deliberately, consistently, every single day. And your legacy isn't about you. It's what you've managed to create with others. And so if you're waiting for one day, you'll miss out on the opportunities of really getting a much deeper sense of purpose with others that are working with you. So it's about bringing each of those individuals together that are also working on their purpose, also working on their legacies, and together it makes that richness of a legacy in motion, as I call it.
And I think your legacy in motion is an amazing part. I've read the book. And you end each chapter with a person who is has meant something to you in your inner circle, or who you have seen creating a legacy in their own journey, but how it supports other things that collectively then create the legacy for all of us. Do you want? I'm going to come back to the gender mainstreaming, seeing we're on the legacy in motion piece. So maybe just explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think the Strelitzia way was never meant about my journey. It was really about, it wasn't supposed to be just my story. And in fact, the only way I became comfortable with publishing this book was because it's been a collective journey. And it's something that, so many people have walked alongside me, Linda. It's and that's the thing. It's about every single person brings something. So it was, first of all, my way of honoring those individuals, those 12 individuals that, I mean, as you say, you've been together with me on my journey for 20 years. Joe's been together with me for 15 years. Some have just come, within the last few years. But I always believe that whoever crosses your path is someone you either need to help or somebody that needs to fulfill something in your journey. And so that motion is that as you are moving, as you are creating, you're creating with others along the way. So, over the 20 years that I've managed Business Engage, I've learned that each relationship adds a uniqueness to your journey. And that's what makes it a legacy. And so it's not something about you get to a final destination and that becomes your legacy. It's what has been created as you're going through a journey. And that's where the motion comes. It's if you take what you've learned and and you stop, that is not adding to your journey. It's not adding to your legacy. It's then, 5 minutes and it's forgotten. It's what do you do and create together that makes it important.
And we're much stronger together. I think collaboration and learning with and from each other is what I also love about 50 Plus, is that and especially when I'm doing my next chapter course, I love the greatest learning comes from the group facilitation, where each person is sharing and the others are listening, and then they hear something said that was in their subconscious, and that's the way we all grow together. And so, it's a beautiful part of your book.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's go back to the gender mainstreaming. I was still around when in Joburg when that was there, and I remember very clearly I was the CEO at Brain Boosters in your very first year, and I found myself as a finalist in one of the community categories. I was busy babysitting my 3-month-old twin girls in London, and Colleen told me I needed to do this interview, which I did, and I found myself in the beautiful Johannesburg town hall or city hall at the sparkling event where I won one of those beautiful gender mainstreaming trophies. So thank you. That will stay with me always. And then for the next 2 or 3 years, I was a judge in the community division. So maybe just share a little bit about what was and how did you start the gender mainstreaming, especially for those on the call who may not know.
Yeah, so the Gender Mainstreaming Awards, I mean, when Malcolm and I sat at a coffee shop, as we always do every single day, I mean, we're very particular. It's become our ritual for the day. We go for breakfast in the morning. We were sitting there and I was thinking, when you look at the World Economic Forum and all the things that are published, everybody always looks at Africa and says, nothing's been done. Corporates aren't doing anything, and Africa's always very, very low on the agenda. And I started looking at it, and through companies I was seeing, individuals we were coming across, and that I was saying, but with all of these stories, how can we be so low on the agenda internationally. And I realized that the fact is we don't tell our stories. As women, we don't tell our stories, but also in terms of corporates, we've all become very used to doing things in silos. So much has been done, but you don't see how much has been done because we are all doing it internally, but not speaking about it. And so the start of the Gender Mainstreaming Awards was to start telling those stories and really to start getting corporates to collaborate, work together. And the more that people said things weren't happening, the more we said, no, actually they are. Here's the stories. So we started with 290 people at that event at the Johannesburg City Hall. Last year, we had 640 people at Vodacom Dome. The year before COVID, we had 870 people at Gallagher. But, I said throughout that journey, I said, it's fantastic that we've managed to grow as big as we have. But if we're not having impact on the ground, then we're just an events coordinator, which we are not. So even throughout the journey, yes, we are 115 corporate strong. Yes, we were achieving in terms of all of this. But essentially for us, it's very, very important, that impact. And what I realized is that, especially in terms of gender work, a lot of the work was around women empowerment and essentially women's issues. Women would get together and they would talk about what isn't happening and how it isn't happening. And, and the reality is, in terms of this work, unless we understand that it's the diversity that makes sense, it's not about men out, women in. Even two women can be so different in terms of the way we think, the way we act, the way we whatever. So it really is about diversity. And so the gender mainstreaming journey has really become part of getting corporates and individuals to understand that it takes all of us to work together under one roof, really having those conversations together. So once we had started that, the stories through the Gender Mainstreaming Awards made it relevant, because if one corporate is getting it, so if an ABSA is getting it, FNB, Nedbank, Standard Bank, all of the others want to get it. If you look at mining, Anglo Gold Ashanti gets it. So all of the mining companies, if you get the motor industry. And so that's the way we've grown, is through the stories. And it's become really integral. We've now expanded into an East, West, and Southern Africa. And we've also now got individual categories that we drive, 3 individual categories: the positive role model, inclusive leader, and R&B's Africa's fearless thinker. But we've been very deliberate in terms of the messaging and in terms of the fact that that's why we call it the Gender Mainstreaming Awards. Unless it is strategic to the organization, it's not going to have sense. So if you as an organization are doing it as a August Women's Month or International Women's Day event, and you're not looking at it from a gender mainstreaming perspective, we do, it will not have the impact that you're looking for, and you will not see the change. We'll be talking in another 100 years about what hasn't happened. And I think if you look at the World Economic Forum, now predicting it's going to be, I think, 135 years to parity. I won't be around in 135 years. And so we need to get a move on. I want to see change in my lifetime.
Fabulous. Fabulous. So we're going to end off now so that we can get some questions from the audience. So what do you hope people will get out of the Strelitzia Way when they read it?
So first of all, I mean, I always say if just one person looks at becoming much bolder, much more deliberate, and has the confidence to really step into the roles that they are made for, that for me is a real output. But I think one of the things is, I want to say, you don't have to wait until you have it all. Start exactly where you are and with what you have, because that's where it's created. So everything starts from there, is that first step. And secondly, when the path feels uncertain, keep walking. I've got two very, very simple philosophies that has got me through some very deep water. And some people might think, as I said, they might think I'm very naive in terms of the way I think, but it's that deep-seated trust that we were not put on this earth to fail. If you're going through a challenge, you've got the answers. You might not be able to see them, but look for them, because you'll never be put to a challenge you are not able to overcome. I think third of all, for me, is that really getting to know your purpose. But it's not a grand arrival and you someday wake up and it's there. I mean, as I told you, mine was just a subtle, you found it. And so you will never know when it's going to arrive. So you just have to go on the journey and trust that you'll get there anyway. But take the next step, no matter how small that is, because sometimes it's the smallest step that gets you to where you need to be.
Absolutely. It's one step and then one step and then one step.
Yeah.
And then maybe sometimes a step backwards, but always looking forward.
Yeah.
So where can people buy the book? By the way, for everyone, you will get the recording and a whole bunch of other information, and I will put it into that as well, but just let's have it here as well.
Yeah, so businessengage.africa. Just scroll down a little bit on the page. There's a link to order the book.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. I'd like to thank so much, Carl. It's been just wonderful to just revisit some of the journey and reminisce with you along the road. But let's open up for some questions now and some comments, just so that we can make it more general. Right. If there are any questions, Jane, if you'll watch the questions for me in the chat. Is there anyone who wants to ask a question, make a comment?
Yeah, Simon. I just wanted to make your comment about sometimes you only find your purpose later in life, and I think I'm beginning to find that now. You know, I never thought I had a purpose until earlier this year. Yeah, people used to say, "What's your purpose?" I said, "I haven't a clue." So interesting you said that. Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think you did find it a little bit earlier, Simon, but at least you found it. That's fantastic. Anybody else?
I've got a question. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Nicola. How are you doing?
And hello, Linda. I was like wondering, when you got into Business Engage, you had to sell like the first member. I think, did you mention that was ABSA?
Yes.
Yeah. How did you do that? I mean, that's got to be the hardest. It's like, I'm just imagining, it's like I'm selling a club and there's no members yet. I'm wondering, how did you do that?
Well, I mean, first of all, it was about, you know, I mean, as I said, my mom always said to me, like, get up and get going and sort yourself out, you know, let's get going. So I never actually thought about it when I picked up the phone and phoned Maria that I would actually be turned down. I mean, it was like, you know, well, of course they're going to buy the first person I go to. I mean, you know, it wasn't even a question. And it was then the realization that, hang on a minute, you're not actually, because I'm very good at selling and negotiating. I mean, it's, you know, my background has been throughout my financial services career is about selling, negotiating, that type of thing. So I thought I had what it took. But there's a difference between driving a corporate and presenting yourself as somebody who's paid by AIG and somebody who's now got a non-profit organization with no members. I mean, it's totally different, you know. And so that is why it took me on that 2-year journey of almost losing our home. I mean, I also used to get calls from the schools to say, Cole, if you don't pay for your school fees, your kids aren't welcome. So as a family, we've been through that. But I had to go on that journey because it was I had to get clarity, first of all, on what we stood for. I really had to get to the bottom of our why, because we weren't the same as everyone else. Yes, there was a woman in mining, a woman in housing, a woman in construction, but what made us unique? What were we bringing that nobody? So I had to develop that first. So getting down to the grassroots of the why was why I had to go on that journey, because I had to understand the journey that others together along the way were going to have with us. But as I said, for me, it was a purely get out and sell, because I'm very good at that. But the thing is, you got to know what you're selling. People have to believe in what you're selling. They must be able to, especially with a nonprofit, people have to believe in your journey. They have to know why they need to come along. They need to know what role they're going to play. They need to know, if I put my name into this, what is it that I'm going to actually be at risk for? So you not knowing yourself as a leader, what you stand for and what you're created a lot of doubt originally. And that's why I had to pull back and say, okay, so let me really understand my why. And so through hard knocks, hard lessons, whatever the case may be, I then knew my why. I knew what we stood for. I knew what we were prepared to risk in order to drive this forward. And as a family, it was huge risk. And it could have gone the other way, but I trusted implicitly that this was my purpose and this is where I was going. And that gave us the confidence to actually then close APSA. And as I said, once you get a corporate on board, oh, well, APSA's joined, because corporates were saying, well, you go and get your first corporate and then we might come along. And then the fact that we had APSA then opened up the doors, because now APSA had bought into it. Oh, okay, so there's purpose. Yeah, so let's all. And so, I mean, it's been 20 years worth of a journey. And because we've always done what we said we were going to do, corporates know. When Business Engage says we're going to do this, we do it. And that's why they've developed the faith in what we do.
Brilliant.
Does that answer your question, Nicola?
Yeah, well done. I just wish I'd been a fly on the wall in that ABSA meeting. I'll come to you for training. I'll attend your events. Well done.
Jane.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicola. Jane?
So, Colleen, men are very good about helping each other in the corporate world, and when someone is out of a job, they're very good about networking and finding a role. Women are not that good, I found, when I was in the corporate world, but I'm interested to see whether you've seen over the years that there has been a change in behavior and women are more supportive and promoting of other women.
Yeah. I think, Jane, we've got a simple philosophy as Business Engage, that we don't entertain any exclusion, whatever the case may be. So I think it's the tone that we've set. But also what I've actually found is that, we always also talk about the boys club and, the boys and all the rest of it. But I've reframed that. And I don't know about the men on the call, if you agree with me, but I've reframed that, because essentially, if I've been on a journey and the people that have supported me throughout my journey as a man are men, and I trust implicitly that if I give this opportunity to a man, he's going to deliver, that doesn't mean to say that I'm excluding women. It's because I'm comfortable that they will deliver. If I look at my journey, there've often been times where I've had women gravitating around me, with the result that I trust the women. So it's got nothing to do with men or women. It's got to do with developing an ecosystem. And I'm very strong on not growing your career. I'm strong on growing systems, building systems that work. And So sometimes you'll have a man that will step in for you and will support you on your journey, and sometimes you'll have a woman. We've got the most amazing support structure in our network, and both. I don't think we've ever had any opportunity where we can say that it's been the queen bee syndrome, where the woman gets the top and she's not prepared to bring anybody up along with her. It's just the culture we've developed. And everybody, when you participate, people turn around and say, gee, we haven't found this culture in many women's organizations. It's because that's what we've said. And so I think the people that you bring together around you, you will find that they mimic what you're prepared to do and that type of thing. So yeah, I've got the most amazing support structure, both men and women, that I can call on every day without hesitation.
Right. Thank you. Amanda, without a hand on her phone in Heathrow Airport.
Oh, lovely to see you, Colleen.
Great to see you too, Amanda.
I think the biggest lesson I've learned over the past couple of years has been how to close a company. And you and I met through Gender Mainstreaming Awards, and that was when we were setting up a business and running it from the beginning. But I would suggest maybe add a category for closing a business.
Okay.
If that makes sense, because I think the leadership skills you require to actually get a business to close with dignity and almost land the plane on the Hudson River. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking of Captain Sully, basically. We learned so much, and I am guessing that we closed the business in a very different way to the way a lot of companies would have done it, which is just to abandon the employees, leave them on the roadside, and try and take as much as you could financially from the business. So it's something to have a think about for the future, because it's almost a life cycle with businesses. And I think how you close a business is just as important as how you open and run it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good point, Amanda. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks, Amanda. Anyone else? Carol.
Hi, Colleen. Thanks very much
Hi.
for sharing with us today. I met you many years ago with a mentoring program in Women in Finance. And I think mentoring has evolved quite a lot since then. I'm just curious to find out from you, what do you think has been successful in mentoring in South Africa, and what do you think lies ahead for, and maybe particularly women as mentors, to really make a difference in South Africa?
So Carol, we haven't started a mentorship program as such. We started, so we run, Sheryl Sandberg's foundation has got the Lean in Circles. And, I think, for us, it really is about taking existing content and, using that to the fullest ability of mentorship. But I think, sometimes I think people think it's got to be like a formal mentorship program with, mentor, mentee, and that. I found over the years that just being available for a coffee, you never know where a coffee conversation goes. And I've actually found that a lot of the times when you just actually are open to being there for people, and, that's why I say, if somebody's coming across my path, it's because there's a reason. It's either I need them, as I said, or they need me. And if it's they need me, having a formal mentorship program is not always necessary. Having a coffee with them and being open to guide them through coffee chats, for me, is really, really important, because essentially it allows you not to follow like a script, but just to be open where the conversation leads. So for me, I'm a real advocate of women and men being available to others spending time with them, sharing just knowledge. Maybe sometimes that person just needs that little bit of strength that they're not finding at the moment. But it's that willingness to be open and to be used, not abused, to be used. And so for me, I mean, I'm often meet with people. I've got 4 or 5 coffees this week, purely coffees, just to spend time with people and to be able to share. I learn as much from those interactions as they do. And so for me, it is that, yes, there are the formal mentorship programs, but I think a lot can also be done just informal coffee sessions. And I talk a lot about that in my book.
Yeah.
Ah, great. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Carol. We have about 8 or 9 more minutes, so 1 or 2 more questions.
I'm curious, are you still in your Lone Hill house and have the
Yes.
renovations finished?
All finished. All finished. And in my book, you'll see I now talk about it being a haven. We have people coming around here. We have events. We have, just our home is open now. And it's really a wonderful opportunity just for people to get together, come and learn, grow, develop, have time together. And so, and our kids have finished school. As Linda says, I'm going to be a granny in January. So my daughter's now finished school, finished varsity, and now going to be a mom. So it's been a journey of note.
The circle continues. And that's fabulous. Wonderful. 1 more question. Okay. Maybe then I will ask you a question to your younger self, Carl. What would you say?
So first of all, I would tell her that the detours are there to teach you and to be there for a reason, because often we look at detours and we think, oh, good golly, where's this taking me to? But understand that the detours aren't destinations. They really are getting you to a place that you have to be, and it is teaching you lessons for your strengths. I think, second of all, that people matter more than titles. I think often when we look at somebody senior in leadership, we always think, well, they are the best. But it's the people, it's the essence behind them. Just because you've got a title doesn't mean to say that you've got what it takes. And, I think just those that are kind may open the doors, not necessarily the person with a title. I think also that one day you will look back and understand that all those experiences were worthwhile, that your trust was worthy and it was valid and that type of thing. Although when you look at it, you think, oh, my hat, you really are, you know what I mean? Cole, you've lost it. The nerves have got you and everything, get with the program. But I think lastly, it's just that ability to get up and get going. My mom taught me that, Linda, is that whatever comes across your path, get up, get going, and push through it. Because everything that comes past you is for a reason. And that deep-seated trust that it'll all be okay. And I think that is so important, because often we get so wound up in what's happening that we don't trust where we're going. So that for me is very, very important. But I think also in terms of the fact is journey to your purpose, because once you find your purpose, you will never look back and will understand your why. So those are some of the things. It's not about the easy road. Growth isn't easy, but you do have to go through things to get you to where you need to be.
Yeah. Thank you. I am so grateful for that day we met at that breakfast. We better thank John Rock for that. And then we journeyed over many cups of coffee and sharing and learning and growing into a 20-year friendship. And I'm deeply, deeply honored to be one of the 12 people in your book. And the fact that I'm in the coffee chapter makes a whole bunch of sense for both of us. So thank you, Colleen. I really appreciate that.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Linda. I really appreciate it. And for me, it's been an absolute blessing having you part of my journey. So thank you so much for being with me over 20 years.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy
Thanks,
the rest of
everybody.
the
Thanks
day.
for joining us.